Hey everybody, welcome to Hot Hardware's 2.5 Geeks. I'm Dave Altavilla here with the illustrious and fabulous Marco Chiappetta and Paul Lilly from Hot Hardware as well. How we doing, gentlemen?
Doing pretty good, doing pretty good. Beautiful day out here today.
Can't
Paul,
complain.
you guys have any major league plans for the holiday weekend, or we got 4th of July, all patriotic and grilling and all that good stuff?
Yeah, my
Yeah.
weekend's packed. I have family on the 4th, and then on the 5th we're throwing my daughter's 6th birthday party. Izzy is 6 now, so family both days.
Happy birthday, Izzy.
Thanks.
You know, it's funny. I'm hoping that Google is doing the right thing here because when I hear Marco talk, I was looking at Paul's face.
Uh-oh.
But there's nothing we can do about that. So forgive us, folks, if Google Hangouts is acting up.
Fair trade-off.
Yeah, Google did have trouble with facial recognition recently, but we were not going to talk about that.
Oh yeah, that was a boy, man. That's like some engineers got to get on that one quick.
Yeah.
That's a bad thing. Very bad
Moving
thing.
on.
What's that?
I said moving on.
Yeah, moving right along. I mean, that's like so bad. It's yeah, we'll move along. It's just bad. It's bad all around. There's no good about it. So let's move on to good things, shall we? So yeah, let's talk about some tech. It's been a little while. We've got a lot to talk about this week. We've got everything from graphics cards to notebooks, hybrid two-in-ones, to games. I mean, all the fun stuff. Marco, you checked out AMD's latest, the AMD Radeon R9 Fury X.
Yes,
And
I checked out two AMD-based graphics cards within the last few days, actually. The Fury X is the big, highly anticipated launch everybody's been talking about, what seems like for months. I also had the chance to play with a R9 390, not a 390X, an R9 390. So I'm going to speak to the 390 first, just quickly, because the 390 is little more than a rebranded 290. So with the Radeon R9 300 series, I'm not talking Fury X, just the 300 series on down, they're basically rebranded versions of previous gen graphics cards. They used either the same Hawaii chip or the same Tonga chip that the previous gen 200 series did, but the clocks have been tweaked slightly or the memory complements have been changed. Now, for example, I took a look at a PowerColor PCS Plus Radeon R9 390 8 gig graphics card. So it's one notch from the top in the R9 300 series. The 390X would be top of the line. The 390 has 2560 shader units, a core clock of 1010 megahertz with 8 gigs of 1500 megahertz memory. If you were to look at a 290 from the previous gen, it would have the same number of shader units, but a lower memory clock and potentially a lower core clock if it wasn't a factory overclocked card. So with some tweaks to the drivers, AMD also made some slight changes to power management and fan profiles and things like that. We're talking a couple of percentage points faster than a 290 in purely GPU-bound circumstances. When the memory comes into play, it does a little better because not only do you have faster memory, but you have more memory. So if you're like to crank up the details and you're running a high-res monitor, an 8 gig 390 would definitely be a better buy than a 4 gig 290 if the price difference isn't huge, but not really a new card. The real new card, well, you know what, I should pause. Anybody have questions on 390 or want to interject something?
yeah, so I'm just looking at the 390 now on Amazon, retailing for $439. How does that compare versus the 290X? You know,
So I think you might be looking at a 390X for $4.
I am. Yep, you're right.
So the 390, the PowerColor card I looked at, it's actually only $329, and at the time the article was published, that was actually cheaper than a 290. So it made sense if you were already looking for a 290 class card. I'm not sure how it's all going to shake out price-wise in the next couple of weeks because all the cards are starting to hit now, and there's overclocked ones and reference 290s are going away. Like it's kind of in flux right now. Essentially, the 200 series stuff is going to go away, replaced by the 300 series, and they are refreshed, slightly better products, but not, you know, a generational leap.
But more frame buffer memory is a good thing, obviously.
Yes, especially as games get more complex, you want that frame buffer memory.
Cool. All right, go to the big daddy.
So the big daddy's actually a little daddy. The Fury X is a very interesting graphics card. So this is AMD's true next gen part. Features some cutting edge tech. Let me just get some specs out of the way first. So I just mentioned before the 390 had 2560 shader units. The Fury X has 4096 stream processors, so way more compute performance. It also has this cutting-edge memory setup. So the Fury X GPU, the code name was Fiji, features something called HBM, high bandwidth memory. Now, this technology brings the memory onto the GPU package, not the GPU die. It's all in the same package. And the memory links to the GPU via something called an interposer using, now listen to this is not a mistake, a 4096-bit interface. Previously, like 512 bits was a really fat interface on a GPU. So really wide interface, but that memory's clocked lower. The memory's only clocked at 500 megahertz. So what that does is allow the Fury X the memory architecture to use a lot less power, but it offers a ton of bandwidth. It offers half a terabyte per second of memory bandwidth, 512 gigs a second. The drawback is the card only has 4 gigs of memory. It's a brand new tech, and with the current generation setup, it only has a 4 gig frame buffer. So we'll talk about that in a sec. But in addition to those 4096 stream processors, you have this cutting edge memory. You have, let me just take a quick peek, requires 2 8-pin power connectors, so not a super power hungry graphics card. The Fury X in particular has a really short PCB with an integrated liquid cooling setup. Now, AMD was able to use that short PCB because of that memory tech. Because the memory is on the GPU and it's all on one package, all of that board real estate that used to be for memory chips and power for the memory chips and filters is gone. So there's only a 6.5-inch, or I should say 7-inch PCB on the Fury X, so it's a nice short card, will fit in small form factors. Price $649, which puts it right in line with the GeForce GTX 980 Ti. In terms of performance, though, it's very competitive, right? It's not a clear win for either company. I'd give the edge to NVIDIA today with 980 Ti. Fury X very strong at 2560 by 1440p res. Also strong at 4K. They sort of trade victories at 4K, but that 4 gigabytes of memory, it's going to be a limiter if you're really cranking up the details at 4K. Then again, there's really not any titles at 4K where you can crank everything up and get a playable frame rate with a single graphics card. So AMD's in this funky spot. I do think there's more performance to be wrung out of this architecture with drivers, though. But AMD's driver team hasn't been the best lately. We still have frame pacing issues with older games that have been out forever. So lots of stuff to consider with Fury X. Definitely a cutting-edge product, though.
Paul, did you get a chance to check one of these out?
Not in person, no, but I don't know if you guys saw, AMD released 3D printer files if you want to customize that backplate,
Yep.
fabricate your own. That has nothing to do with performance, but I thought that was a cool little addition.
Bling's important. Bling is important. You could do a little custom HH backplate. That'd be nice, right?
You know, speaking of bling, that's something I should have talked about. And I'm sorry I'm blathering on. I'm starting out with the new card, so lots to talk about.
You can blather. It's fine.
If you were to look at NVIDIA's last couple of generation graphics cards, they did an awesome job with the industrial design and, you know, the nice metal coolers with the windows, and they were quiet and they just exuded quality, LEDs on them. And AMD, on the other hand, like the 290X, it was a good card, but it had a plastic cooler, nothing super terribly exciting to look at on it. With the Fury X, AMD definitely stepped up the industrial design game. It's got this black nickel-plated metals. It's got a lighted Radeon logo across the top, soft touch finish with that removable front plate that Paul just mentioned. And since they've released those CAD files, you can now make custom plates that'll be a perfect fit, whether on a 3D printer or a CNC machine. It's also got like the Fury X also got some LED indicators to signify load, and the color of those LEDs can be changed between blue or red. And the card is super duper quiet. So you might think, oh, AMD had to slap this huge liquid cooler on it to keep the card, to keep the card functional. Not the case with that liquid cooler. Card actually operates in like the 30-degree range during just normal desktop use, and under heavy load for hours, I didn't see it go higher than 61 degrees, which is 30 degrees lower than a 290X would have gone. And power consumption, even though the card is way faster than the previous gen, power consumption is right in line. So AMD's made huge advances on a bunch of fronts. Power consumption is much better, which means it's more efficient. It is much better performance than the previous gen, sometimes 50% faster. Way better industrial design. It's nice and quiet, except for a whiny water pump on review samples. Story is that's not going to be the case with all retail cards, but that's also still playing out. I really hope their driver team starts kicking some butt, and this card can really stretch its legs.
Yeah. I have a couple of questions here. Let's talk about value proposition versus a 290X class or maybe a GeForce GTX 980, not necessarily a 980 Ti, something that's down a notch from a price standpoint. When you look at the performance profile of this card, you look at the complexity of that water pump setup, water cooler setup. Let's face it, we play with water coolers all the time. It's no problem. We bolt up that radiator up inside of a place, a spot in the case, a mount inside of a case. But it's not completely mainstream. Not everybody is used to messing with that stuff. When you factor all that in, is this card, from a performance standpoint and for the price premium, I'm seeing them retail now on Amazon, $667, I think is what I'm seeing it right now. That sounds a little high. I think there's probably a little bit of gouging going on from some of the e-tailers maybe. But price, complexity, all that stuff, do you think it's worth it that much over the higher end cards that are just a notch down the stack?
I mean, it depends. If you're on a 1080p monitor, you don't need to spring for a $650 graphics card. However, if you're on a 4K monitor, it's a huge performance upgrade, and it's a little more complex to install. You got 4 more screws, but it's really completely self-contained. You plug it in the slot, slap the radiator up on the back of the case, and you're done. So it's not a huge issue. I'm not personally a giant fan of liquid coolers because there's just more points of failure than a straight-up air cooler. But it all depends on your particular usage case. If you have a single monitor, 1080p, absolutely not a huge value going with this over, say, a 980 or even a 390. If you have a 4K display and you're struggling, basically every graphics card is going to struggle with eye candy at 4K, then yeah, it would be a huge improvement in experience over the previous gen, and I would say spring for it because I'm a PC nut. But yeah, it all going to depend on what you're looking for in your PC.
Paul, are you the type of guy that needs to have the fastest graphics card, or do you like to go to the value notch, a notch down where perhaps the previous gen or at least not the tip-top card exists?
Well, as far as wants, yeah, I'd want the top end, but the wallet, brings it down a notch. I guess my issue with the card is if you're gonna drop, 600 or more, presumably you're gonna be gaming at 4K, and if you're gaming at 4K, I'd want to wait until they get above 4 GB for the RAM on there. I guess you could slap 2 cards in there, but then you're dealing with 2 liquid coolers as well. So
and $1,200, $1,300.
Yeah. Well, even with 2 cards, it's still 4 gigs. It has to duplicate all of the game data. So AMD did say that there were. So in the private briefings, AMD would talk about how for years, because cards, they just kept making frame buffers bigger and bigger, there was very little optimization work done on how the frame buffer was used, how that memory was actually used on the graphics cards. They kept making the links wider, which meant more RAM chips usually and more memory on the cards, and there was very little optimization work done on how everything was copied into the graphics card's memory. And they said there is some low-lying fruit where they can optimize that 4 gigs to effectively, behave like it was higher because the memory usage is more efficient. Plus, there's that delta color compression that the GPU offers that, again, shrinks down some of the data that's stored in there. And with next-gen APIs like DX12 and Vulkan, that will also make the memory usage more efficient. But by the time all that shakes out, next gen with HBM2 and much larger memory complements will be here. So I don't know. And then again, I'm not dissing AMD because I'm running a pair of AMD cards in my system, and I have few issues with drivers with the games I play. Their software is not bad. It's not like way back in the day when AMD had or ATI had driver trouble. But having to rely on the software team to pull all this off, there's a question there because their history is not great and their resources are slim the way the company's been doing. So lots of questions. It's a killer cutting edge card. I really like it, but it's just lots of stuff has to shake out.
Yeah, I think kudos to AMD for stepping out with the technology first. We've always spent quality time with guys like Joe Macri at AMD, who is on the JEDEC for next generation memory technologies, whether it be GDDR5 or now HBM. And at least I believe he was on JEDEC. He might not be anymore. But yeah, I mean, these guys have always been on the forefront of memory technology as it relates to graphics and bandwidth and pushing that bandwidth. And so I agree. Kudos to AMD for stepping out with the first iteration of HBM. I think it's the future. I think 3D stacked memory is the way to go. I think you're obviously going to see an offering from NVIDIA coming down the pipe. It's going to be, word is it's going to be HBM2. But yeah, it's nice to see them step out and get it done with cutting edge technology rather than just throwing another, 4, 8, whatever gig of GDDR5 on board. They actually took that step, and I applaud them for innovation. But yeah, interesting times to be sure in the graphics card market, and it will be interesting to see what NVIDIA can do next. We'll have to see. So let's shift gears a little bit, and I invite you guys to join me in this discussion, Paul, you as well, because I wanted to talk a little bit about some mobile technologies, and then we'll come back to what the Fury X and high-end graphics cards are targeted towards, which is gaming, and we'll come back to a topic. We'll talk about Batman a little bit on that, beat on that a little bit, but I want to beat on something called the Microsoft Surface 3. And I'll preface this by saying that all of us here, and Marco, Paul, I think you all agree, we just love great technology, and we love when manufacturers do things right and really step out. And Microsoft, for the first couple iterations of Surface, really did a nice job. And now we saw the Microsoft Surface 3 Pro, which is your full core Intel Core powered device. Fantastic device, little bit pricey, but a lot of power and a very thin profile and light footprint, and that attachable keyboard, the membrane keyboard, keyboard cover. And then they came out with the Surface 3 just recently. We took a look at it, reviewed it, and I spent some time with it as well. And that's a step down in cost, which is great. It's good to see them catering a little bit more to the mainstream. It is targeted at being a hybrid 2-in-1 to replace the notebook, as they say. A tablet that can replace your notebook. But I think what happened in the process was they made a lot of compromises to get that cost down. Didn't end up getting it down far enough when you talk about the price point, and ended up with this sort of tweener product that was still expensive when you consider you're talking north of $700 for the tablet, $599 for a 128 gig version with 4 gig of RAM. And oh, by the way, this is powered by an Atom processor, Intel Atom processor. You're going to want that 4 gig of RAM. The 2 gig version would definitely be a little bit thin. With 128 gigabytes of storage for $599, add on the type cover for $130. Now you're talking north of $700 for an Atom-based tablet with 4 gig of RAM and 128 gig storage. The kicker, and what really could have put this product over the edge in terms of performance, was that Microsoft, and I don't know why they did this, in their infinite wisdom, went with an eMMC flash implementation. So embedded memory, it's not M2, an M2 stick. It's not a gumstick SATA drive. It's not PCI Express. like we've seen in so many tablets and two-in-ones lately. And so as a result, you look at the performance of this device when you check it out in the standard benchmarks, and you see where the bottleneck is. It's the drive, and the thing actually performs like a standard hard drive. If you look at which is crazy, you get flash storage that's acting, a lot like a hard drive in terms of read throughput. It's like 145 to 155 megabytes a second. Write throughput is half of that, actually, which is even worse. But read is what you care about in general terms when you talk about a consumption device like this, or a more consumption targeted. So, it's really kind of a mixed bag. On one hand, you've got this beautiful, you got to give Microsoft credit, well-designed, tablet and great industrial design, runs full Windows, really nice, Windows 8.1, and all the apps that go with it. You even get a free subscription to Office 365 for a year. Great value when you think about what it could have been if it only was enabled with a little bit faster storage, and if Microsoft took that type cover and threw it in for $49, I don't have an issue. But you're talking about a plastic membrane cover that, it's got a fancy little magnet that snaps up real tight. For $130, just seems like a little bit too much money. What do you guys think? And then I'll talk about some what I think are better alternatives. What do you guys think, Paul? What do you think about the Surface 3?
I'm with you on the type cover. I think they've been pitching it for a while now as a system that can replace your laptop. But if you're just buying the Surface, it can't. You're getting a tablet. You need to have the keyboard with it. And I don't want to see them sell it even for $49 for what they're offering. I want that thrown in because it's not costing them a ton to make that. It's not going to kill their bottom line. They need to throw that in, and then when you're pitching it as a system that can replace your laptop, I could say, hey, it really can. Because if you think about Surface, the whole reason it exists is I think they needed to show their vision of Windows 8.1 or Windows 8 and Windows 8.1, their new interface and the dual-purpose design. But I'm with you. The price either has to come down, or you have to throw the type cover in, or you have to have both for it to be, to me, a viable option. Because you have so many good alternatives. I know you're going to point out some from ASUS and Lenovo, Toshiba. They're all making two-in-one devices, and a lot of them not only come with the keyboard, but come with the keyboard that's better than just the membrane. So.
Yeah, I would agree. Marco, thoughts? Or am I off base? Am I being too harsh? I know you're a Microsoft fan. Not fan.
No, I think both of you guys are right on point. The thing that this is what Microsoft, in my mind, as someone that follows the company fairly closely, this is what Microsoft always does. They have this golden opportunity, right? Everybody was kind of ripping Windows RT in the low-end Surface, the non-pro Surface tablets, since its inception, basically. They have this opportunity, okay, we're going full Windows on the cheap non-pro, or the cheaper, more affordable non-pro Surface. We're going to do it. We got Intel processor, similar battery life, great screen, great build quality, and then they go and gimp something, so they lose that momentum and opportunity. If they made this a no compromise solution and used faster storage and perhaps threw in the keyboard like you guys were mentioning, it's a home run. Everybody would say go buy this. It's $499, beautiful tablet, laptop replacement, great battery life, portable, beautiful aesthetics, blah, 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 but they go and gimp it just in these key areas, and it ruins that momentum. So I agree with everything you guys said. I hope somebody at Microsoft just starts tweaking things a little bit, and then they have real opportunity. Right now with Windows 10 coming, in a few weeks, there's lots they could do. You got Windows 10 coming to the Xbox, coming to desktop PCs. They're basically giving it away for free to everybody with valid licenses, and lots of stuff can happen. I just hope they don't continually make these couple of key poor decisions that hold everything back.
Yeah, I would agree. I think if I were a betting man, and you look at the competition on this device, on the Surface 3, you're going to see some deep discounts. The thing probably isn't going to sell as well as they like. I think they've done a lot with the Surface brand. Certainly, in terms of their advertising and marketing, you see a lot on TV. So they're doing a great job these days with marketing, something they haven't always necessarily been strong with. but if I were a betting man, I think you're going to see some price cuts on this thing, and I think it has to happen. I think if you think about the alternatives and you see the alternatives in the marketplace, there's just more powerful machines for less. Paul, you mentioned the Asus offering. I would agree with you. I think the Asus T300 Chi or Chi Transformer. Well, I'm trying to think of the name of the machine.
That was right. 300 Chi, I think is right.
Yeah, I think I got it right. I just wanted to pull it up, but yeah, the Asus T300 Chi. That is, now you're talking a full Core M device. I'm still trying to pull it up here. Mobile, notebooks, tablets. Yeah, there you go. So you're talking a full Core M device. You're talking about great design aesthetics here as well. It's a 2-in-1, comes with the keyboard, and you're talking about roughly $600. We actually took a look at an 8 gig configuration now for a little bit higher end. It's more like an $800 machine with a 128 gig SSD. And oh, by the way, that SSD is every bit what an SSD should be. It pushes about 500 megs a second read. And really, really nice machine. I'll see if I can screen share it out just real quickly here and present to everybody. Okay, so there you're looking at it there. Beautiful machine, runs full Windows. Core M now, not Atom, so you get a lot more CPU horsepower. 4 to 8 gig of RAM, and for roughly the same price range that you would get with the type cover for. Actually, you can find it for less, and that cover, that keyboard dock, as Asus calls it, comes with the device. So that's one option. The other option is a device we looked at this week, which is the Dell Inspiron 13-7000. Now you're talking about a 13-inch notebook that also doubles as a tablet. So, okay, if you want to go a little bit more upscale, this is a roughly 3.5-pound device. It is a convertible in that it's a notebook that has a fully articulating hinge, flips all the way back into tablet mode. Granted, a little bit more bulky, certainly, than a Surface 3 with type cover. But you're talking about, a full Core i7 5500U on this, 8 gig of RAM, and a 256 gig SSD is what we looked at. For $999 is tested, as low as $749, so just about the price of a Surface 3 with type cover. And now you're talking about a full-fledged, notebook tablet hybrid that converts. And then I'll give you a third option, and it's one we haven't looked at yet here at Hot Hardware, and that is Dell's fabulous, which we haven't looked at this yet. We haven't done the full review, but you're looking at it here now. This is the Venue 10 7000. Now, this is Android, so okay, you're not going to get your full Windows experience here if you're into it for Windows. But talk about a beautifully built machine. This thing retails for around $600, I believe. Let me take a look at it. Yeah, $629. Okay, here you're talking about roughly the same Atom platform. It's an Atom Z3580. Runs Android Lollipop 5.1. The display is off the hook. You're talking about 2560 by 1600 OLED, which is gorgeous.
Show the viewing
holding
angle.
it up on camera, which is a lot of reflection. It just doesn't do it justice.
Can you show the
viewing
saturation
on this display is just amazing. As you can see, nice backlit keyboard. It's a 10-inch device, just like 10.5-inch display actually, just like the Surface 3. And so talk about a really strong alternative. Comes with the keyboard now, and it does de-dock. Let's see if I can do that quick. I'll have to. Yeah, there you go. So as you can see, batteries here in this little cylinder, and speakers, by the way, built in, and then it magnetically just docks right up to that keyboard and snaps right in. All that for $629. So that's an Android alternative. You're not going to get your full Windows. So there's the drawback there. You do get Office 365 for free with a Surface 3, but lots of alternative in Android. A Dell Inspiron 13-7000, again, full Windows notebook tablet hybrid or 2-in-1 that converts, doesn't detach, not a detachable. But if you look at products like the Asus T300 Chi, Now you've got your full detachable solution as well with a better complement of electronics inside. So yeah, Microsoft missed it on this one, and I hope they recover. I hope they offer a little bit of a price cut. I think if you got that thing down to what, $599, Paul, or $499 with the type cover, it's doable. But
that's actually a question I was going to ask you. You said you played with this. How annoying is the storage on it? I know in the benchmarks it holds it back, but as far as just general purpose computing, is it noticeable?
yeah, good, excellent question. Yes, it is noticeable. One of the things you notice right away when you boot up. Let's see. Well, certainly the T300G, when you boot that up in Windows, I'm just trying to think of other Windows machines I've had in, is how instantaneous. Oh, I took a look at, for example, here's another option, the Lenovo LaVZ machine that we just got in is 2 pounds or less, and it's also we got the LaVZ 360, which fully articulates as well, a convertible. When you see these machines boot. Asus T300G as well with its Core M processor, so not a full up Core implementation, but Core M, Broadwell Y. When you see these machines boot, they boot in under 10 seconds. When you look at the Surface, it definitely doesn't do that. If it gets to the desktop in 30 seconds, maybe. I haven't looked at it lately, but when I did the video review, it took about that long, if I recall. And then the other thing you notice for sure is a little bit of lag when opening applications. When the machine has to go out and fetch over Wi-Fi to pull in a feed, let's say, for example, on the news feed or one of the sports channels or whatever, when you pull up a web page, you do sense the loading is lagging a little bit here and there. Is it a deal breaker? No, it's still a very functional machine. I only tested the 4 gig model. I would hate to know what the 2 gigabyte version, 2 gigabyte of RAM version operates like. I think that would feel probably emaciated. But yeah, you feel it in spots.
See, to me, I don't want to sit here and bash Microsoft, but to me, that would be a deal breaker. Even with the price coming down, it still doesn't fix the performance issue. I mean, if I can feel it just, day-to-day computing. So I guess, I don't know, maybe they took an Apple approach where they intentionally give something so they can, advertise on the next version that it's improved. I don't know. I
think they were cutting costs and trying to maximize profit. I don't know why they didn't intentionally do that. I just think they missed it. They thought the eMMC storage would be better and or not better, but good enough, and yeah, just wasn't.
For some people maybe it will be. I mean, we're a little more critical than the average crowd, but yeah.
That's very true. Very true. We are. Yep. Very true.
If you want to see Microsoft kill it in the next few months, they got to do a Surface phone, a Lumia with the Surface design language, a Core M based Surface, a lower priced Surface Pro, and get Windows 10 right, and then they got some real movement possibilities.
I think you nailed it there. And that's actually a really good point. When you talk about Surface, the Surface Pro, Surface 3 Pro, full core implementation, Intel Core series, the Surface 3 should have been, the way I think of it, at its price point, should have been Core M, full Core M performance, and then maybe they could have done like Surface 3 Lite and and threw in that Atom and made it $499 or something like that. You've got a nice little offering of high, medium, and low, right? So yeah. Anyways, enough picking on Microsoft. Let's pick on someone else. I'm only kidding. Let's talk about Batman, because that made some serious news lately, and certainly as pertains to the latest graphics card launches from AMD, the R9 Fury X. What do you think about Batman? We took a look at it. Had one of our guys take a look at it. Some interesting issues and spots, but some good old-fashioned Batman gameplay, which is always fun. Marco, you're going to share some thoughts on that first, right?
Yeah, no, first, just my normal idiotic sense of humor. If that was picking on Microsoft, we're going to take a dump on Rocksteady and Batman.
Oh! That's a little coarse, dude.
No, well, you know what? This game makes me mad, and I'll explain why. A couple of reasons. First, huge iconic character. Like everybody and their mother loves Batman, right? So you have this highly anticipated game with this character everybody loves, and for months we've been seeing some really cool gameplay footage and awesome visuals. There was just so much promise coming in. And then over this past year, we say we, like internally when we speak to GPU companies and game developers, when the new consoles came, all we heard was it's going to unleash the PC because the old consoles were holding everything back. Everything's x86 now. It's just easier to optimize, blah, blah, blah. And it kind of, for a few months, felt like we were hitting like this nice stride in PC gaming with really awesome, good-looking titles that ran well. And then Batman, this highly anticipated title hits. And what did Rocksteady do? They have a third party do the port that basically botched it. They put these arbitrary, stupid limitations like a 30 frames per second frame rate cap on the PC, and the game like is basically broken to the point where they had to pull it off the market. And it's like, why do you do that to what, in my opinion, and I've said this a lot, the PC is the premier gaming platform. It's, if you want the best gaming, you want a PC. And like, just don't treat it like a redheaded stepchild. Do the PC justice. That's why stuff like this Batman fiasco makes me mad. Am I wrong?
No, I think you're dead. I think you're dead nuts right on. No, I want to hear what Paul has to say about it.
Yeah, I agree with Marco. This is the last thing that the PC needs right now, because it feels like we're always defending ourselves against consoles and preaching how much better we are, and then a release comes out like this and they actually pull it off the shelf. That's pretty embarrassing. I mean, for the not just for them, but just for PC in general. I think it's bad.
Yeah. It's funny. We do talk about the PC master race and all that good stuff, and I think one of the hooks of the PC, you don't have the convenience of a console where you can just plug something in and go. Sometimes there's a patch to download. Sometimes there's a network configuration that isn't just right. It's not like hopping on the Xbox or PS4. There's a little bit more tweaking, even to this day, even though things have gotten markedly better. But for the average PC gamer, that's piece of cake, and you can have a much better experience and much better visuals on a PC than you can with a console. I mean, the rendering capabilities, with our graphics cards alone are just superior in every way. We're PC gamers here at HotHardware, no question about it. But we're technology agnostic, and it's like on the console, if they could pull it off, what the heck? You get some of the best tools in the world on the PC. It should be cake. Well, easier said than done, I guess, but it should be easier. And yeah, there's no excuses there.
And then it raises the question. I think we posted an article about this earlier today. Is they had to have known it was broken, but how broken did they know it was, and why did they continue to push it out rather than delay it until it's ready? Because that's essentially what they're doing now by pulling it off the shelf. It's delayed.
Yeah.
I have to think that 30 frames per second cap was put in there to maybe mask some of the latency and weird frame rate issues the game was having, but it didn't have the intended effect. There was other cases where it was just not good. Bottom line is that they probably knew there was issues, thought it was something they were going to slip by and just patch in the first few days, first couple of weeks, and it turned out to be much more widespread and worse than they expected. And their team said, all right, instead of backtracking, let's just pull it and try to fix it and see what happens. So I don't know.
Marco, did you talk about this? I muted for a quick second to do something, but one of the things I picked up on as well is that actually some of the graphics effects are turned down. Like there's been some coverage of showing a scene where Batman's standing in the rain, and you can see in the console version the mapping of the raindrops and the moisture on his suit is very obvious and looks great. And then you look at the PC version and it's his flat black leather suit. There's no rain effect on it at all. Did you talk about that? I mean, it just seems like they even had to hamstring the graphics, which is crazy.
Yeah, I didn't talk about that. Yeah, but it's again, it boils down to the same issue: is not properly qualifying and optimizing the port.
Yeah.
There's more horsepower on the PC. Yes, there's more overhead with the APIs on the PC, but not to the point where you have to dumb down the graphics on the PC side. That's the opposite of how things usually go. So when you have to limit frame rates and chop things down on the PC, you did something wrong.
Yeah, someone was asleep at the switch on that one. That much we know. Do you think they can recover? I mean, Sean on our team took a look at this title for us, Sean Sanders, and he said the gameplay is as fun and satisfying as it ever was, except for the occasional performance snag here and there. I actually benchmarked some of the numbers with Sean, and you certainly, with multi-GPU scaling, forget about it. Right now, you actually lose some performance at most resolutions. So performance isn't what it should be, but it's playable, and gameplay, he said, was every bit as satisfying as the usual Batman. He enjoyed all the different weapons and tools that Batman has in his arsenal. Do you think they can recover? You think a couple of patches down the road in the not so distant future, this thing's gonna right itself?
I think so, yes, because gamers have a very short memory, unfortunately. So people because it was such a high-profile title and such a beloved character, it's probably going to have longer ramifications than normal. But if they fix it, maybe they throw something in, and it turns out to be a fun game. Yeah, I think gamers are still gonna want to play it. I want to play it. I'm gonna wait. But I would love that. Those games are just fun. That's my kind of mindless button mashing, kill stuff, cool graphics that I like. So I wish that there was some sort of punishment for screwing up like that. But it is what it is. They'll fix it. People will still buy it.
Yeah, what's that?
At least that's what I think.
Yeah. I think I saw some chatter on the net about gamers talking about putting in some sort of penalty clause or whatever when developers do bonehead things like this. And I mean, developers in a lot of cases have a tough gig. I mean, it's a high purchase situation to be a game developer, no question about it. And then Steam with the refund policy that they implemented. I mean, it can be a pretty tough gig, right? Pretty tough business from a profitability standpoint and from just a general pressure standpoint. But yeah, there's been even talk about that. How do you, as a consumer of a game consumer, a gamer, how do you cover your butt when you buy this thing and you realize it's a piece of junk, which I don't think we're quite there with Batman. I think it's certainly salvageable, but yeah, there's got to be some recourse because people are tired of getting screwed on games and it frankly, and I hate to even bring up this word, but it fosters piracy. It's why the pirates go nuts, because game developers pull this kind of stuff, or one of the reasons, not why, but one of the reasons.
You have to wonder too how NVIDIA feels about this, because they're using the game as a selling point for a lot of their graphics cards. I mean, you shop an NVIDIA graphics card, chances are it comes with Batman. I don't know if you guys have looked recently, but it seems like all their graphics cards comes with Batman. So, I don't know. They have to answer to them as well, I think.
I bet you NVIDIA's in there hard and heavy right now. Probably all over them like a cheap suit.
That's actually like another sticking point. NVIDIA, their DevRel team, they actually sometimes plug engineers in at game developers to make sure some of their graphics tech gets implemented right. I'm not sure that Rocksteady had that, or whoever was doing the port had access like that, but the game uses NVIDIA GameWorks tech. I'm sure NVIDIA gave some guidance, some guidance on the programming, and yet they still treated it like like the redheaded stepchild of their release. So, boo, boo.
Boo, boo. All right, let's move off the boo, and we'll shift gears to something a little bit more positive. Again, we'll end on a high note here. Let's talk about something I saw when I ran out to Chicago on a business trip. I actually went out to see the folks at CDW, and I'll preface this. This isn't a marketing plug. This was actually a tour. They actually had a bunch of journalists out to their Chicago, actually Vernon Hills, Illinois plant to check it out, to check out their operations and see how they do things. And I'll be following up with sort of like a little blog post, maybe a little news post on CDW in the future, because very impressive. If you're a shopper of e-tailers like Amazon and Newegg, you wonder about the infrastructure behind these powerhouses and how they move so much inventory. The place is amazing. CDW, that is. When you look at it, when you're actually doing a tour, we actually went through the warehouse. We went through all these different areas. They've got this new command center that they're setting up for their enterprise clients to literally help support them for server and whatnot in sort of maintenance and installation and troubleshooting. And they do all kinds of stuff, special configurations for the government, to custom labeling and all that good stuff. But to actually see the facility and see the conveyor belts and the robots and how they just move the inventory is just wild. And so, yeah, I went out to CDW, and they actually took us to, so impressive place. I'll just kind of close off on that. Impressive place. If you're thinking about buying some tech in any shape or form, check them out, because great people that I met, and certainly an impressive facility with great capabilities. They took us out to Microsoft in Chicago as well, downtown Chicago. We actually went to the Envision Center. What do they call it? Yeah, the Envisioning Center, Microsoft's Envisioning Center, and we got a little demo of the Microsoft Surface Hub. And here's something again where Microsoft is really a very different company than they were before. You're getting a sense now these days, especially lately, where Microsoft is really all about innovation and getting to market as soon as possible with as much enabling technology as they can. And before, the company was sort of conservative. They would need to see the business case before they would launch a big commitment to resources and funding for technology. Well, they went out a few years back in 2012 and bought a company by the name of Perceptive Pixel, I believe is the name, and they acquired this technology for basically integration with their Surface technology, and it allows for basically a complete reinvention of the whiteboard. It is impressive stuff when you see it live. There's smartboard technology out there these days where you can, it's different than that though. Where you can project stuff up onto a screen and mark it up on the board and then print out your stuff. That smartboard technology exists in the classroom environment these days quite a bit. But Surface Hub is a full Windows machine, has integration with Skype and collaboration for video conferencing. So face-to-face video conferencing is built in, and there's dedicated equipment on the market for video conferencing. But there's also full collaborative desktop sharing as well. So in a window, you can bring in the other person's desktop from the other end of the line. You can, you'll have their face right up on the screen in a Skype window, and you can annotate and mark up and share. Anything you do on your desktop can be projected up there, shared, annotated by both parties on either side. And we got a hands-on demo, and it was pretty impressive stuff. I think it's sort of a sign of things to come for certainly the enterprise, but I wonder about the potential for the home as well, because if you think about, we all talk about how sci-fi becomes reality eventually in our business, which is a great business to be in. It's what makes it so fun and interesting. But when you think about the Jetsons, right, and George Jetson stepping up to his TV and talking to Mr. Sprocket or whatever on the other side, I'm dating myself now. Now you've got, certainly that teleconferencing that was in sci-fi, but now you've got full collaboration. You've got, okay, I need to throw a document over to my friend, and I guess the question I have, and I wanted to get your opinion on as well, guys. This is a beautiful thing for the enterprise and for the classroom, certainly, and you can see colleges and universities being all over this. I mean, just being able to share and collaborate and share your desktop and have video conferencing and annotate between each other. It is the full virtual telepresence meeting on a display, and in this case they've got 50, I think it's 55-inch and then an 84-inch version of this sucker. They're not cheap, but really impressive stuff. Do you think this thing's going to eventually find its way down to the mainstream, into our homes in the future, way down the road? Are we going to have this just communication device that allows us to share with anybody that calls us in, and if we want to?
I don't think it'll take the form of the Surface Hub like that. I don't think most people want to walk up to a giant screen or TV. It might be some sort of projector, or holographic tech and you have mics throughout your home, mics and speakers throughout your home, and as you're walking, something's just following you along the wall or what have you. It would be more, more dynamic in that way. We sort of already have what the Surface Hub can do with our PCs, just not quite on the same scale.
Yeah. What do you mean we have it on our PC? You mean like Skype and whatnot?
Well, all of the technology that's in that Surface Hub, you can have on your PC. It's Windows, it's collaboration with Skype and Office. It's stuff we can already do in other ways. So I don't think people would change their entire workflow in their home for that particular setup. But we're eventually, I think communication is going to go this way. Everything's going to be, all over IP technology. We're going to have lots of video, lots of quick sharing with data, not the clunky social networks we have now. But
yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, no, I would offer. I think if you look at what Surface Hub does, I think it's a little bit more complex than that. You certainly get the video conferencing. We certainly can do things like remote desktop and TeamViewer and WebEx and all that stuff. But if you look at what Surface Hub does, when you're drawing on a screen or marking up things, it's shared on both ends. So there's digitizer pen technology involved there as well. I mean, it's all. I guess we all could have that, on our PCs if we had the tools all put together. But this is a fully integrated thing, so it's a little bit more powerful, certainly than the software tools that are there today. The other thing it has that I didn't mention is it's got 3D cameras on board, so it allows to it will sense and do different things as well. And down the road, they're going to flesh that out some more. We saw a very early demo, there's more coming. It's not released yet. I want to say pre-orders actually start this month, and then they're shipping in September. So it'll be interesting to see. Paul, what do you think? Are you going to be George Jetson in the future with this thing, or what?
Yeah. If I live that long enough, sure. It's an interesting product. And then you have to wonder how much of that technology will get integrated into existing displays, whether it's your monitor, your TV, or something like that as well. But yeah, I'm with you. Eventually, I see it coming home in some way.
I think it'd be cool on phones. Like you could definitely see. We got handheld devices now with digitizers and pens. You could definitely see that kind of stuff on a phone. A little bit more integrated, certainly with FaceTiming, if you will, to use an Apple phrase. But yeah, it could be some very interesting stuff coming down the pipe. It's good to see Microsoft still pushing the envelope on some things, and I think you'll see more of it moving forward from them. So we'll give them a little pat on the back because we beat on them for so long about Surface 3. Hey Marco, let's finish up on one more positive note. We are currently right now in the process of wrangling in a sponsor for a new giveaway, right?
Yes, we can't reveal everything yet. We're still hoping for some good developments, but if everything goes to plan, we will have a couple of systems to give away, and they will be of the cute little tiny variety, but very, very handy, useful, fast, fun, cutting-edge stuff. We just can't talk about it just yet. We're hoping to have the details very soon, hopefully by the next podcast.
Little tiny cute computers.
Cool
Possibly.
stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah, and it could be from a major league brand name that everybody knows, so stay tuned.
I don't know what the nuck you're talking about right now. But.
Oh, jeez. Paul, he's letting the cat out of the bag. Well, anyways, yeah, so stick around. We'll be hopefully giving away some technology this month. We plan to kick it off hopefully in the next few days, actually. And if you stop by HotHardware.com, that's where you'll find us. That is the main URL. Marco, would you like to share the other places where the folks can find us around the web?
I absolutely will. We are all over the place. We are at facebook.com/HotHardware, twitter.com/HotHardware. We're also on Google+. Just search for Hot Hardware on there. I'm not going to speak out that crazy URL. Of course, Dave mentioned plain old HotHardware.com, where all the good stuff, where the magic actually happens. And youtube.com/HotHardwareVids, where you're probably watching this right now.
And Uncle Paulie's basement, right? The don't see no evil, hear no evil basement. You're there too, right? We're just kidding. So, thanks everybody for joining us today. Thumb up this if you like this little webcast we got going on called 2.5 Geeks. Subscribe to our channel here with the folks at YouTube for Hot Hardware Vids. And have yourself a wonderful 4th of July weekend. And thanks for stopping by.